Hi there, Sandra here from the Schwowin's Nest. Thank you so much for joining me today. DIY number one is using this galvanized pot from the Dollar Tree. And what I'm going to do with this is take a regular kitchen sponge and some chalk paint. This is Martha Stewart chalk paint in the color clay. And I'm going to dab it all the way around the pot. I just want to make sure that the lettering is covered up, but I do want a little bit of that galvanized metal to show through. The reason I'm using the sponge is because I don't want to see any brush strokes. While I wait for the pot to dry, I'm going to mix up some textured paint. I'm pouring in a latex paint. This is just something that I had left over in my house, and I'm pouring it right into a little plastic container that has a screw top lid. As you can see, I save all of my jars, including my pickle jars. They come in really handy because I don't want to have to lug around that big gallon of paint. I just throw it in a pickle jar. I added a couple tablespoons of baking soda. Now, with this technique, you want to add a little bit first and then add more if you need it. I found that I did need a little bit more just to get the consistency and the texture that I wanted. Mix it up until it's nice and smooth, but if it gets too thick, you can simply add a little bit of water and then it'll thin out again. For this technique, I am using it a little bit thicker. You can see that when I pounce that brush in there, it's really not making a hole in it. I'm just getting some texture on the brush. This is probably like the consistency of jam. So if you are into jam and you can kind of spoon it out, that's kind of the consistency you want. What I'm doing now is just taking this little brush and I'm pouncing it right on top of the other color. And I'm getting a really wonderful concrete kind of look. I'm getting some bigger chunks here and there and some smaller chunks. And I'm just going to keep going all the way around the pot until I get the look I want. Here's what it looks like so far. You can see the texture and you can see a little bit of the darker color underneath. It's just beautiful. Once the paint was almost dry, I'm taking the same sponge and the same original color, which is the darker color, and I'm just kind of sponging it on because I want to get a little bit of a deeper shade, but I still want some of that lighter color to show through. So I'm going very lightly with my sponge and blending it in. I wanted to camouflage the little skinny handles on this, so I'm taking some of this white nautical rope that I have, and I started by hot gluing a piece of it down, which is what I'm holding with my thumb, and I'm just going to go ahead and start wrapping it all the way around the handles, gluing it in a couple of spots as I go. I'd like to take a moment and say thank you to all of my viewers and subscribers. I really appreciate your support. I'm really close to 17,000 subscribers, and I could not have done it without you. If you are new to my channel and you like what you're seeing, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and become part of my YouTube community. When I got to the end of the first handle, I decided to continue the nautical rope underneath the rim of the bucket all the way around. This way I didn't have to make any extra cuts to stop the rope, but it also made it look more high-end and complete. Where I had to cut the ends, I just kind of let those edges hang down on either side of the handle, but I am taking a little bit of Mod Podge and I'm just going to run it across those edges so they don't fray even more. I have a new obsession, and that is printing on white tissue paper. I take a little piece of tissue paper that's just a touch smaller than the printer paper. I tape it across the top and about halfway down the sides, and then I run it through my printer like usual. And this is what I get, a beautiful little label that I can decoupage right on top of my project. I'm going to use Mod Podge and put a thin layer where my label is going to sit. Then I always use my brush to pick up my little label because they are really thin and sometimes it's hard to just place it right where you want it to be. If you have it on your brush, you can just kind of eyeball it and set it down right in the center. Making sure that I have a little bit of Mod Podge always on my brush. You don't want to have your brush too dry because that will tear the tissue paper. Start from the center and work your way out, gently pushing the wrinkles and the air bubbles out. This is a textured pot, so I know I'm going to have some wrinkles and bubbles in it, but if you have too many, you can do what I'm doing now. You just take your brush, make sure again it has a tiny bit of Mod Podge on it, just pounce up and down on top of the bubbles and the wrinkles, and they will just get pushed right into the Mod Podge underneath, and all of those bubbles will disappear. Now I'm going to blend in the edges of that tissue paper just a little bit. So I'm taking my sponge and I'm taking the lighter color, not the baking soda texture, just the regular paint. And I'm using the edge of the kitchen sponge to just go all the way around and camouflage that tissue paper. I also dabbed just a wee bit on top of the tissue paper where it's black just to show a little bit more texture and distressing. I'm going to be adding some eggs into this, but I wanted to show you a trick. I don't like filling all of my buckets and containers with so much foam or styrofoam that I end up wasting it. So what I do is take an old piece of cardboard, and I always save the sides and the lids from my Amazon boxes. The boxes themselves come in handy, but I always use the flaps for this. I'm going to cut out a circle so it fits into the bucket about an inch down from the top, and then I'm going to hot glue it in place. To camouflage the cardboard, I'm just going to scatter some reindeer moss all over the top of it. I'm not even going to glue it down because I might change my mind after Easter and use this bucket for something else. I have a bunch of these styrofoam eggs that are actually covered with a hard plastic, and the colors on them are beautiful. Nice pastels. They came off of a thrifted wreath last year that I picked up just before Easter, and I couldn't believe my luck. So I have been using all of these eggs in so many different designs and crafts last year and this year, and I still have a bunch of them left over. What I'm doing now is just taking some black paint and a stiff brush and flicking the paint onto the eggs so they get a little speckled. So I've got this sweet little bunny from the dollar store, and I went ahead and glued him down to the cardboard, and now I'm just going to glue the eggs just right onto the moss because they're not really going to go anywhere, but I just don't want any of them to fall out, and I can also then place them where I want them to be. Please excuse my black finger there. I didn't go and wash my hands after I flicked the eggs, and now it looks really awful seeing it here while I'm editing, so I do apologize. I've got some tiny eggs that I'm going to add into the mix as well, and I'm even going to give him one to hold in his little paws. I wanted to put some type of little sign above the bunny's head, so I decided to grab this wood slice, drill a hole in it so it would hold a bamboo skewer. I'm going to go ahead and glue the skewer in, then cover the skewer with some white butcher twine, and then write 5 cents on it and pop it in behind the bunny's head. I think this project turned out super cute. DIY number 2 is using this frame that I picked up at my local dollar store. It was $3. I really love the look of the frame itself, so I'm going to remove the backing, but I'm going to keep the glass in. Using the backing of the frame as my template, I'm just going to place it on a piece of white cardstock, and using my craft knife, I'm just going to cut around the edges to make it the same size. I'm using a ruler, and I've just got it pushed out about an inch or so past the edge of the paper, and I'm just using a dry brush, dipping it in some of my favorite new color chalk paint, which is eucalyptus from Martha Stewart, and I'm going to go ahead and just create some stripes all the way across the sheet. Using another color of green, this is Antique Sky from Martha Stewart, and it's a lighter green. I'm going to just go in between the dark green stripes, leaving a little bit of white peeking through. I found this beautiful vintage bunny family on pixabay.com. I'll have the link for you down in my description box. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this out into a circle and then glue it right onto a piece of black cardstock. I cut the cardstock out as well in the black, leaving about 1/4 of an inch. And now I'm just taking a makeup sponge with a little bit of the eucalyptus paint, and I'm just kind of rubbing it around the edge of the white cardstock. This is just going to give it more of a vintage distressed look, and it'll also just help the white paper to blend in a little bit with that green background. Using my glue stick again, I'm just going to apply it to the back of the black cardstock and glue it into the center of the striped paper. I'm going to place it back into the frame, and this project is done. This last project is super easy. I picked up this bunny holding her kit at the dollar store, and I'm going to go ahead and give her one coat of chalk paint in white. I'm not going to worry about full coverage because I do want some of that color underneath to show through. And with it being a resin piece with all those little grooves of her hair, it just turns out absolutely adorable. I hope you liked my 3 rustic bunny DIYs. If you did, I would love for you to stick around a while. Hit that subscribe button and don't forget to give me a thumbs up. That tells YouTube that you like my video, they promote it more, and that helps my channel grow. Thanks again. Have a great day.